Hello, and thank you for joining us to learn about the benefits of the QuoteWerks Configurator in QuoteWerks Web. The Configurator is a powerful tool that simplifies the quoting process by eliminating the need to memorize or look up product options and relationships. It allows the salesperson to construct a simple or grouped bundle on the fly by following a series of pre-configured prompts that guide them through the necessary decisions. Let's start by looking at how the configurator is used so we'll have some frame of reference when setting up our own configuration. The configurator can be accessed from the product menu or by selecting the configurator icon on the standard toolbar. Once in the configuration screen, you'll see a list of all the existing configurations available. The QuoteWerks system comes stock with the entertainment system configuration, so we're going to use this to demo how this process works. You select the name of the configuration that you'd like to work with and hit Start. This brings you to the first step in the configuration window. You'll note that this particular step on the bottom left says please select the type of TV you want in your entertainment system. It also notes at the top of the window that they're asking for a type of TV. Under available items, we'll see that this is step 1, and then we have to select at least one, but no more than one, options in this particular step. I'm going to select the branch to HD TV. When I add that to our selected items, you'll see that that brings us to a secondary window, step number 2, that says that I must select at least one, but no more than one HD TVs. Here I'm going to choose the 61-inch HD TV. And I'll add that to our selected items. When I progress to the next step, it's going to ask me here to select accessories for my HD TV, in which I can choose not to make a selection, but I cannot choose more than 5. In the next step, I'm being asked if I want to include a receiver. Again, in this step, I don't have to make a selection, but cannot select more than one. Step 5 prompts us to select our speakers, which we don't have to make a selection because select at least is set to 0, but our selections are limited at 10. I'm going to add a few speakers to our configuration. The final step in this configuration is going to ask if we want a structured wiring package. Again, we don't have to make a selection here because select at least is set to 0, but we can't choose more than one as select no more than is set to 1. I'm going to omit a selection in this step and move on to our final step. The final step is inserting this configuration as a bundle into our quote. We can choose to insert it into an existing heading or create a new section header or heading to insert these items under. I'm going to create a new section header called Entertainment System. You can also choose to add those to the quote or insert those items into the quote. In this case, I'm just going to hit Finish, which adds them to the quote. You'll also be prompted for the quantity of the configuration you'd like to add to the quote, and in this case, I'll be adding a quantity of 1. You can now see that our entertainment system bundle has been added to our quote and includes all of the selections that we made during the configuration process. Now let's take a look at how to build a simple variation of this configuration. And for that, we'll go to the configurator screen. Here, to create a new configuration, you'll select the New button in the top left. After giving your configuration a name, you'll be asked whether or not you want to create a simple bundle or a grouped bundle. For the purpose of this demonstration, we'll be creating a grouped bundle. You'll be asked to include some internal notes. You'll also be asked to put a part number. You could also include a part number from your vendor if you have one, a line item type, and the configuration description of what will be listed on the line item when you add this particular bundle to a quote. On this screen, you can also set unit price overrides, as well as making it so that if you double click on an item, you advance to the next configuration step. I'm going to choose to leave both of those blank today. The next step in the process is to build our workflow for the configuration, and we do that by creating selection containers. I'm going to create a new selection container named TVs. What we're going to do today is create a simple configuration where a user will have to select a TV, then a receiver, and then a speaker. So I'm going to create containers for my receivers and my speakers here now as well. The next step in the process is to add items to each of our containers that users can select as they're moving through each step in the configuration process. To do so, I'm going to double-click on the TVs container. Here we have an area to put in a config prompt. In this case, this is a perfect prompt. This is telling the user, please select a TV. We've also set it so that the minimum selection is 1 and the maximum selections is 4. To populate this particular step with items, we'll click on the Items tab and hit the plus button. Here we can search for TVs in our database. I'm going to add a couple options. And we have a screen that pops up for each of the products that we're adding to our configuration that asks us to set different settings. I'm going to leave these as is for now, as we'll discuss them later. You can see now we have our 4 televisions added to our TV step. And if we hit OK, it'll close that particular window. Now it's time to populate our receivers window. We'll select the receivers container and double-click. This is where we are again prompted to put in a configuration prompt. In this case, we'll say, please select a receiver. We'll make it so that there does not need to be a selection made with the min selection set to 0, but with the max selection set to 2. Next, just like with our TVs, we'll come hit the plus button and add receivers. Now that we have all of our receivers, we can now hit OK and move on to our speakers. Again, we're going to select the speakers container, double-click, and put in a config prompt. In this case, again, we're going to make it so that the user does not have to make a selection, but that they cannot make a selection greater than 10 items. And then we'll populate the items here. And you can see we have quite a few speaker options that have been added. When we hit OK, it brings us back to the flowchart window. And the next step in this process is to determine how we want users to go from one container to the next. To create that connection, you right-click on the container and drag to the container you want to go to next. In this case, we're going from TVs to receivers. You have the option to choose a default branch, a navigation-only branch, or a part number branch. For today, we're going to talk about the default branch, but we'll get into the others later. A default branch requires that a selection be made before moving on to the next step in the process. So we're going to choose default branch for TVs to create a connection between our TVs and receivers. Just like with our receivers, we want our users to select a receiver before they can move on to the speaker step, and we'll create a connection between the receivers and the speakers by dragging and dropping once again and selecting default branch. We've now created the workflow and have a workable configuration. Now let's quickly run through the configuration and make sure everything works correctly. We'll choose the demo configuration and hit Start. We'll choose the TV that we want to include in our configuration and hit Next Step. We'll choose our receiver and we'll choose our speaker options. Finally, we'll be asked how we want to insert this into the quote. I'm going to choose to insert this under a new section header called Option 1. Now, as you can see, our grouped bundle is added to our document with each of the selections that we just made in our brand new entertainment system configurator. Thank you for joining us to learn more about the power of QuoteWerks and the QuoteWerks configurator. Make sure to check out the intermediate and advanced configurator videos for even more demonstrations.